You don't forget the exact moment you realize you mean nothing to someone you built your whole world around. For me, it was a Friday night, quiet except for the hum of the fridge and the faint thud of bass leaking through the bathroom door where she was doing her makeup. Again. Third weekend in a row, she was going out. Third time she told me not to wait up. I was standing in the hallway of the apartment I paid for, every cent, watching her reflection in the mirror as she put on lipstick, adjusting her hair like she was prepping for a red carpet. It hit me then how much of a ghost I had become in my own life. Just a shadow paying the bills, picking up groceries, folding laundry, existing so she could live louder. Her name was Camille. At least that's what she went by now. Born Camila Torres. But ever since she moved to the city, she insisted on something less Latin, more professional. That should have been a red flag now that I think about it. Not the name itself, but the way she casually deleted parts of herself for image, for appearances, for approval. When we first met, I thought I had found someone who saw the world through the same crooked, hopeful lens I did. She was magnetic. Not in that flashy, fake kind of way, but in the kind that made you want to know her stories. And for a while, she made me feel like I mattered. I was 26 then, working long hours as a systems engineer in Philadelphia. Camille was 24, finishing her design degree and juggling shifts at an overpriced cafe where the lattes had names longer than the receipts. She hated it, but she smiled through it, said it was temporary. We met at a mutual friend's game night. She beat me at Scrabble and laughed so loud the neighbors banged on the wall. I was done for right then and there. For the first few months, everything felt like a dream. I planned small dates, she wore my hoodies, and I honestly thought this was it, the real thing. I started folding her into my routines. I learned her favorite flavor of oatmeal, kept her favorite wine on hand, even memorized her class schedule so I wouldn't bug her during studio hours. And she seemed to love it. The attention, the gestures, the way I prioritized her over everything. And that's where I messed up. See, the mistake wasn't loving her too much. It was loving her without boundaries. I made room for her in my apartment, my wallet, my mind. And she took all of it without ever asking what it cost me. At first, it was small things. She moved in without officially discussing rent, and I let it slide. She wanted to redecorate the place. I funded the aesthetic upgrades. She started using my car more than I did. I justified it. She's stressed. She's just trying to finish school. She'll contribute once she graduates. Spoiler, she never did. A year in, I was covering everything. Rent, food, utilities, her student loan minimums, her phone bill, even gas money. Camille, meanwhile, started calling it our apartment, our couch, our kitchen, our home. Never mind that her name wasn't on the lease, that her cards never hit the checkout counter. And you know the worst part? I didn't mind. Not then. Not when I still believed that we were building something, that we were on the same path, that she'd eventually see how much I was investing, not just financially, but emotionally, and return even a fraction of it. But people don't change because you love them harder. It didn't fall apart all at once. The rot crept in slow. She stopped asking how my day was. She spent more time on her phone than looking at me. She'd cancel plans without apology, disappear for hours without explanation, laugh at messages from people she didn't want me to meet. And I still made excuses. She's just tired. She's busy. She's overwhelmed. I was so deep in denial, I forgot what self-respect felt like. My friends saw it before I did. My sister pulled me aside one Sunday after brunch and said flat out, "She's using you, Micah." I didn't speak to her for 2 weeks. The denial ran that deep. Then came the night that cracked everything open. That Friday, the one with the mirror and the mascara, I asked Camille if she wanted to stay in, order some food, watch a movie, reconnect. Her answer? "You're not my priority right now." She didn't even look at me when she said it, just stared at her reflection, adjusting her lashes like she was commenting on the weather. I didn't react. Not right away. I just stood there, quiet, letting the words sit heavy in the air between us. I asked her to repeat it. She rolled her eyes. Don't be so dramatic. I already have plans. We can hang out tomorrow. Tomorrow? Like I was a dentist appointment she could reschedule. And that was the moment something inside me shifted. All the exhaustion, the hurt, the slowly dying pieces of myself finally aligned into a single, piercing clarity. I was done. After she left that night, slamming the door with the same indifference she reserved for traffic noise or junk mail, I just sat there. No TV, no music, no lights, just me, the hum of the refrigerator, and the buzzing silence of everything that used to be us. It was eerie how calm I felt. I wasn't angry. That had burned out weeks ago. I wasn't sad. Sadness needs hope to survive, and I had none left. I felt hollow, but in a strangely freeing way. Like I'd finally taken off a backpack full of bricks I didn't realize I was carrying. There was no dramatic epiphany, no sudden rage, just a quiet decision that I wasn't going to keep playing the part of the man who stays. The next morning, I started with the basics. I canceled the auto payment for her phone, then her car insurance, then the streaming services I never used but she binged daily. I left her gym membership untouched, figured she'd need somewhere to go when the silence at home got too loud. She didn't notice immediately, too distracted by whatever new social chaos she was chasing. But after a few days, the cracks started to show. First came the passive-aggressive comments. Weird, my phone didn't process this month. Then the confused questions. Did you change the Netflix password? I played dumb, shrugged, sipped my coffee like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. Especially me. I stopped asking how her day was, stopped waiting up for her, stopped cooking dinner for two and folding her clothes and pretending not to care when she came home at 2 a.m., reeking of cologne that didn't belong to me. I let her live her life, exactly how she wanted to, free, unbothered, and entirely on her own. For the first time in 2 years, I started focusing on myself again. I went to the gym, not to impress her, but because I needed to feel strong again. I reconnected with my old friends, the ones she used to roll her eyes at because they weren't cool enough. I dusted off hobbies I'd abandoned, photography, hiking, reading books that made me feel something real, and something incredible happened. I started liking myself again. There was no grand confrontation, no screaming match, no tearful begging or slamming doors. Camille didn't even realize I'd detached until it was far too late. That's the thing about people like her. They only notice silence when it stops serving them. One night, about 3 weeks after "You're Not My Priority," she came home earlier than usual. I was reading on the couch, a playlist humming low in the background. She walked in carrying Thai takeout, my favorite, and offered a smile I hadn't seen in months. It felt staged, like someone trying to mimic warmth after years of cold. She sat close, asked about my day, complimented my haircut, a change she hadn't noticed 2 weeks ago when I'd gotten it. She laughed too loud at things that weren't funny, touched my arm like we were still connected. I let her. I didn't flinch. I didn't lean in, because I wasn't there anymore. She started trying harder after that, cleaning up the apartment, making coffee in the morning, leaving little notes with hearts in the margins, texting during the day, offering to cook, and burning the pasta, but still trying. And all I could think was, now you care? Now, when I've stopped? Now that the ATM isn't refilling your lifestyle? I didn't confront her, didn't lash out. That would have been too easy. What I gave her was worse. Distance. Emotional vacancy. The silence of someone who's finally done giving. I watched her unravel slowly, the panic building in her eyes as each of her usual tricks failed to pull me back in. She asked one night if I was mad. I said no. She asked if I still loved her. I said I didn't know. She asked if we were okay. I told her we would be. But I never said together. By then, the plan was already in motion. I was looking at apartments, reaching out to friends, mapping out what life looked like without her in it. And it looked clean, calm, and light, like stepping into a room that hadn't been aired out in years and finally throwing the windows open. The last nail came on a Tuesday night. She came home from a meeting, reeking of wine and unfamiliar perfume. She didn't even try to explain, just dropped her heels at the door, kicked off her jacket, and flopped onto the bed like nothing happened. I stood in the hallway, watching her laugh at some video on her phone, and felt nothing, no jealousy, no rage, just clarity. This wasn't a relationship anymore. It hadn't been for a long time. It was a transaction I never signed up for, and I was ready to cancel the subscription. I didn't leave in the middle of a fight. I didn't storm out after a screaming match or slam the door like some dramatic ex in a soap opera. That would have meant she still had power over me. No, I left quietly. At 5:17 in the morning on a Thursday, I got up, made coffee, folded two shirts, packed a duffel bag, and walked out the front door without looking back. No note, no goodbye. Just a single text, sent from the parking lot before my car engine even cooled. You don't have to worry about me being your priority anymore. I'm gone. And I was. Camille didn't call right away. She probably woke up thinking I was on a morning run or grabbing groceries. It took her until the afternoon to realize the silence wasn't temporary. When the hours stretched and I still wasn't home, when the scent of coffee faded from the kitchen and my shoes were no longer by the door, then she called. First once, then 5 times. Then came the texts, long, desperate, confused, accusatory, apologetic, loops of guilt and panic and rage. I didn't answer any of them. I crashed at my buddy Ben's for a few days. The guest room was small, but the quiet was addictive. No perfume trails in the hallway. No emotional minefields. No walking on eggshells, waiting for the next cold shoulder or deflection. Just me, finally able to breathe. Over the weekend, I signed the lease on a one-bedroom near the river. Nothing fancy, just mine. By Monday, I'd transferred all my mail, closed every shared account, cut the financial umbilical cord that had fed her lifestyle for 2 years. I sent a polite message to her parents. No details, just a heads up that tuition was no longer my responsibility. If Camille wanted to be independent, she could start by facing real life on her own. And that's when the shift began. Because cutting her off financially wasn't just about money, it was about clarity. Once the perks disappeared, so did the pretense. She stopped pretending. The sweet texts dried up. The flirtation vanished. What remained was resentment, raw and bitter. Suddenly, I was selfish, cruel, immature. As if walking away from being her unpaid caretaker was an act of war. I ignored it all, and I started living. I went to the gym 5 days a week, reconnected with people I'd ghosted during my Camille phase, took weekend hikes, slept through the night for the first time in months without waking up in dread. I bought my favorite cereal again, the one she used to call childish. I listened to music out loud. I laughed, real laughs, not the polite kind you offer just to keep the peace. And eventually, I stopped thinking about her, until she showed up at my new place. 4 weeks in, no warning, just a knock on my door at 8 p.m. I opened it and there she was, thinner, pale, eyes ringed with dark circles, holding a hoodie of mine she hadn't returned. She looked like someone who hadn't slept properly in days. "Please," she said, her voice cracking. "I miss you. I messed up." I believed her, but I didn't care. Because by then, I had already healed past the version of me who would have been swayed by her tears. I had already let go of the guy who measured his worth by how hard he loved someone who gave so little back. I let her talk. Let her ramble through apologies and promises and declarations of love that should have come a year earlier. And then I said the calmest sentence I'd ever spoken in my life. "You should go." She cried on the other side of that door. I didn't comfort her. I didn't offer closure. She didn't deserve that storybook ending. I wasn't her therapist. I wasn't her second chance. I was done. That night, For the first time in 2 years, I went to bed with no unanswered questions. No wondering what I'd done wrong. No knots in my stomach. Just sleep. Deep. Dreamless. Healing. A month later, I met someone new. Someone who didn't play games, who asked about my day and actually listened. Who didn't make me feel like love was something to earn. And when she called me a priority, she meant it. It's strange how quickly people can vanish from your life once you stop letting them control the light switch. Camille disappeared like smoke from a blown-out match. Fast, messy, and with that familiar burn in the air. After that night at my door, I didn't hear from her for weeks. But silence doesn't mean peace. Not with people like her. She started showing up at bars I used to go to, places she used to hate. She texted me from new numbers, sent messages through mutual friends. Just checking in, she'd say. Or, can we talk? Or the classic, I miss you, I'm ready now. Ready? As if love were a light switch, something she could turn on and off when it suited her mood. And I'd stand there, waiting in the dark, grateful for a flicker of her attention. I ignored all of it. I was done replying to ghosts. Meanwhile, my life moved forward. Slowly at first, then, with a kind of momentum I hadn't felt in years. I moved into my new apartment fully, picked out furniture that reflected me, not us. I found myself enjoying the little things again, cooking for one, reading on the balcony, the silence of a clean, quiet space that didn't reek of stress. People asked if I was bitter. No. Bitter is what you feel when you think something was taken from you. I wasn't robbed. I volunteered. I gave until I was empty. That's on me. But healing, real healing, starts the moment you stop blaming yourself for being kind. Camille thought I'd always be an option, a safe bet, a steady fallback. But that's the thing about good men. We give, and we give hard. But once we leave, we don't look back. I heard through the grapevine that she dropped out of school, that her credit tanked, that she couch surfed for a while before moving back in with her parents in Delaware. Her friends drifted. Her Instagram got quiet. No more curated captions about the love of her life or photos of the gifts I paid for. She vanished in the same way she entered, effortless, careless, and eventually irrelevant. And then one day, she appeared again, not in person, not even through a message, but through someone else's voice. I was sitting across from someone new. Her name was Grace, not flashy, not overwhelming, just solid, real. The kind of woman who didn't need to be the center of attention to feel valuable. She asked about my past, not out of jealousy, but curiosity. Genuine, steady curiosity. And I told her the short version. Just enough. She nodded. Didn't judge. Didn't flinch. I'm not her, she said softly. And I don't expect you to forget. But I hope one day you stop remembering like it still hurts. That was the first time I realized it didn't. The story of Camille wasn't a wound anymore. It was a scar. One that didn't sting when touched. Just something that reminded me what I'd survived. What I'd learned. That love without respect is manipulation. That sacrifice without reciprocity is slavery. That being a good man doesn't mean being a fool. And that sometimes walking away isn't weakness. It's self-respect. Now, when people ask if I regret it, I just smile. Regret? I regret staying as long as I did. I regret all the birthdays I spent alone in my own house while she danced with strangers in bars she never told me the names of. I regret all the nights I cooked for someone who only fed me silence. But leaving? Leaving was the first promise I ever made to myself that I actually kept, and I've never looked back.